Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. We're going to talk about a very important element of the Durham probe that most people don't understand. And this is the reason why a lot of people maybe say, well, does Durham exist? What's going on? How come it's taking so long? Not only, everyone asks, well, why is it taking so long? I'm going to explain why it's taking so long. And I'm going to explain why a lot more people are going to be indicted, especially attorneys who helped fund and also spread the Steele dossier. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, to my super chat. I can't thank you enough. If you want to talk about the Durham probe or any topic, the stock market, Alec Baldwin, our beloved president, mashed potato brains, any topic at all, via super chat, thank you so very much. Your support is appreciated. And subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel right now. Everything I wrote about last October is taking place. The 2,000 to 3,000 point drops in the market, unfortunately, will happen. I believe Bitcoin will get to 10,000, unfortunately. And I believe the Dow will descend to 20,000, unfortunately. But getting back to the Durham probe, I want everyone to look at this article right here. Email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP Dad. Well, what does this have to do with the Durham probe? The Durham probe special counsel is a special counsel that can investigate anything as long as it's related to the setup or the framing of President Trump by intelligence operatives. So, if, for example, they indict Michael Sussman, the lawyer, the attorney who worked for the law firm that was linked to the Clinton campaign and the DNC, and they find out that he, for example, had something to do with Hunter Biden or something to do with Joe Biden, or if anyone involved had any interest in covering up Biden's numerous scandals while at the same time leveling baseless allegations at Trump, Durham can investigate that. Okay? Durham can investigate that. There are a number of people involved in the impeachment process who also fall into the Durham probe investigation. But here's an email from, and you had President Trump in Texas say when Republicans take over the House, they're going to start investigating Biden's corruption. So it's not just the Durham probe. You'll have House investigations, and you'll have Senate probes of Biden's son's emails. They don't have emails that link Trump to corruption. Okay, there are endless emails that link them to corruption. But here's one. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father. It's really an honor and pleasure. This is a Ukrainian businessman, top executive at an energy firm that was linked to corruption. And the reason that Biden and NATO won't allow Ukraine into NATO is because of alleged corruption. Hunter's working for a firm that is supposed to be corrupt in Ukraine, and that's not a problem for him, but it's a problem for NATO. So Biden and Western countries have played a very disingenuous game. They said, oh yeah, we're going to stand up to Russian aggression, knowing very well they have no intention of allowing Ukraine into NATO. But if it's the president's son, he has no problem receiving an earlier email from May 2014 also shows the number 3 executive asking Hunter for, quote, advice on how you could use your influence on behalf of the company. Or advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. Okay? So if any of these attorneys, if that law firm has any link at all to Hunter or to Joe Biden, and very likely it does, the Durham probe can investigate. And I just want to it's a special counsel, ladies and gentlemen, okay? It is a special counsel. So the Durham probe is a special counsel. Eric and Luke, Eric, thank you so very much. Eric H526, thank you for being an amazing moderator. Everybody, Eric has a YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel if you enjoy video games. Luke St. Martin, thank you so very, very much, Luke. Two great moderators, two of the best moderators on YouTube. Thank you so very, very much. So that's one example. If you look, Clinton campaign, DNC paid for research that led to dossier. Now, this was well known. The man that they're talking about here, Mark Elias, he just testified. He just testified to a grand jury. So a lawyer representing Clinton campaign, the DNC, retained Fusion GPS, a Washington firm, to conduct the research. This man is a political operative. He basically has this attorney and the attorneys like Sussman always worked for the Democratic Party. That's their clients were the Democratic Party. They were political operatives. Okay, you don't have many Republican attorneys that have as much influence with media and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which we'll get to in a second. The big issue, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. Usually it takes me 10 years to get to my point. The reason that you might think this is going on forever and nothing's happening is because they have to actually show people deliberately try to set up and frame Trump. And as they're doing that, they have to get to, either perjury or false statements to the FBI, or they have to get, deceiving a FISA judge. No one is going to say, we set up and framed Trump. No one is going to say that. They're not going to say we set up and framed Trump. Matt Calmark, hello! Starting it off, thank you so very much. My super chat, thank you. Matt Calmark, thank you. Sotirox, hello. Matt Calmark, thank you. Thank you, Matt Calmark, greatly appreciated. No one is going to say we set up and framed Trump. No one is going to say that. No one is going to admit to that, okay? No one is going to admit to spreading an absurd dossier, okay? And a dossier full of lies. And it's interesting, too, you have the way Wikipedia describes the dossier is, Newsweek has stated that the central theme has been proven correct. The central theme was not that Russia wanted Trump. The central theme of the dossier was that he was actually working with Russian intelligence operatives. That's what the dossier says. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. It was completely made up. But again, see, their lies are not relevant to them. Their lies are grandiose, like you get government agencies believing their lies. Government agencies don't believe things that Trump says that could be viewed as lies or hyperbole. They don't like the influence that this kind of law firm has. Twitter, for example, suspended the New York Post's account. I mean, you have well, here, Biden creates legal. So check this out. This is interesting. This is really interesting. So here you have, hold on one second. So here you have inside the campaign, they are creating a litigation unit. A litigation unit, which will be led by forms who are joining the campaign. Hundreds of lawyers will be involved, including a team at the Democratic law firm Perkins Co., led by Mark Elias. So this was in early September of 2020. Or no, September of 2020. Okay? And so anyone associated with Joe Biden could possibly fall under the scope of the Durham probe. That's how all-encompassing it is. That's why you got a blue dress from an investigation of Whitewater, and that's why you got process crimes that have nothing to do with the initial accusation of Trump working with Russia. You got all these people who were indicted for lying to corrupt agents like Peter Strzok. But anyone associated with any of the people that are now either indicted or investigated by the Durham probe, they risk being indicted themselves. Because this is all, look, the desire, the goal, the objective of all of these people is to set up and frame their political opponents. But they're doing so in methodical, deliberate steps that might not be seen as breaking the law if you look at them independently from, from everything they're doing. So right now, that attorney Mark Elias, we don't know if he's committed any crimes. But we do know that he helped fund the dossier. And we do know that the dossier was full of lies. And we do know that, for example, Sussman, who worked in the same law firm that helped fund the dossier, was indicted on false statements. Kilgore, thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Born to Raise Hawks, thank you so very much. Thank you very, very much. Greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly appreciated. As always, Happy New Year to you, and thank you so much for watching always. Thank you so much for watching. I hope all is well, and it's so kind of you, and it's so generous of you and kind of you, as always. Kilgore Trout, thank you so much, as always, too. Thank you, Born to Raise Hogs. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Born to Raise Hogs, I can't thank you enough. And Kilgore Trout, thank you as always as well. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, they are what Durham is doing is he is painting a picture. And the picture, Born to Raise Hogs, thank you again. So kind of you. The picture is the following. Kilgore Trout, thank you. As always, too, thank you. The FBI didn't know. They didn't want to set up Trump. Comey didn't want to. So Born to Raise Hogs, this is what they're trying to do. Everyone here. The philosophy of the Durham probe is the following. James Comey didn't want to indict, or didn't want to set up Trump. The media didn't want to. Nobody wanted to actually set up Trump. We're just trying to find out why Michael Sussman made false statements to the FBI who happened to be duped. Why were they duped? Well, we talked about this last night, but it's very important. It's very important. This false representation by Sussman led the general counsel of the FBI to understand that Sussman was providing information as a good citizen rather than a paid advocate or political operative. A good citizen, don't you understand? He was just being a good citizen, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you understand? Sharon! I really hope you get to watch the latest Glenn Beck and talk to us about it soon. It will knock your socks off, stock market Bitcoin. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. I will check that out. I appreciate that, Sharon. Thank you. As always, Sharon, you have amazing messages, and I will check that out. Thank you, Sharon. Born to Raise Hogs, thank you so much. Kilgore, thank you so very much. As always, Born to Raise Hogs, thank you. Sharon, thank you so very much. As always. So, this false representation led to the general counsel to understand that Sussman was providing information as a good citizen. So Sharon, Born to Raise Hogs, Kilgore Trout, everyone here, do you understand how absurd it is? But it's something that Durham has to do because he's already put agents into prison in Boston. One FBI official in Boston years back he put into prison because he was utilizing his post and working alongside a criminal organization, tipping them off, allowing them to commit some heinous crimes. And then he just fell back and said, God, they're informants, so there's nothing we can do about it. And then Durham found out, hey, you know what? He was utilizing his post as an FBI official for personal gain and for a corrupt purpose. If you utilize your post, so right now, people at the FBI, no judge in the country is going to, well, very few judges perhaps, are going to say, oh, well, a person like, James Baker, he didn't know that he was the legal counsel. He didn't know that Michael Sussman, who worked for the DNC, he didn't know that they were actually working on behalf of the Clintons and the DNC. Look right there. James Baker, the FBI legal counsel, okay, and others, he just thought that Sussman and the people at Perkins Coie and others, they were just good citizens, and they had information on, possibly Trump working with Alpha, trying to communicate with a Russian bank through servers, and they really cared about national security. So the FBI is going to say, we really were duped and deceived and tricked by these, these immoral, unethical political operatives. We had no clue that they were trying to set up Trump. You can't go to the Federal Bureau of Investigation if you're running for mayor of a city and you're like, oh yeah, my political opponent is having a romantic relationship at Area 51 with an extraterrestrial. I think that you should go investigate. It's not going to happen. They will disregard any claim. You can't just go to the National Security Agency or the Central Intelligence Agency. Well, I have some information about my political opponent. Here's some information. They're communicating with China, or they're communicating with a bank in Beijing, or a bank in Moscow. Yeah. Please investigate. The FBI is not going to. They're not going to even. You won't even get a meeting, okay? You won't even be. Even if you knew people there, you probably wouldn't get a meeting. This is a DNC law firm, like a whatever you want to call it, a powerhouse, or their specialty is politics. So They're going to set up and frame people legally, or at least they try to. So you can read the indictment right here. This is the Durham probe indictment. The Durham probe indictment. You couldn't get a greater authoritarian than Biden. There's no greater authoritarian. They say Trump is an authoritarian. Trump doesn't care what you say. He doesn't care what you do to your body. He doesn't care about what your belief system is. He doesn't care at all. The authoritarians, he wants you to have free speech. He is against military interventions. The authoritarians are the people who want to silence you and then send Americans off to Europe, which makes no sense at all. Born to raise hawks, thank you again. Bogdana Papai! Do you think anyone higher up than these attorneys will be held accountable? I do. Bogdana Papai, thank you. JG, hello. I do. Born to raise hawks, thank you as always. So kind of you. Bogdana Papai, I do. You have to, Bogdana Papai and everybody here, Bogdana Papai, it starts off with this indictment of one attorney. And then this indictment of one attorney for allegedly lying to the FBI, who were so innocent, Bogdana Papai. They had no clue that this man was trying to deceive. Here, this is right here. Sussman's lie was material because, among other reasons, Sussman's false statement misled FBI General Counsel. The General Counsel wasn't smart enough to realize that Sussman was a political operative. Don't you understand, Bogdana Papai, Born to Raise Hogs, JG, Eric, Luke, everyone here, Sharon, Kilgore, Trout? Don't you understand? They didn't know. They had no clue. They were so innocent. The attorneys at the Federal Bureau of Investigation were so innocent, and they were so gullible and naive, and they thought that Sussman was just providing information as a good, honest American citizen. Looking at the stars and stripes and eating his Wheaties and, watching Buck Rogers and eating apple pie and watching some reruns of Mickey Mantle hitting home runs. And he said, wait a second. This Sussman guy essentially said, I think that Trump is working with Russia and communicating through a server with a bank. And this somehow is evidence that he worked with Russian operatives. Who knows? And of course, they found out that it had absolutely nothing to do with any espionage or any foul play. It was like a marketing software. It was like some kind of internet marketing software that they confused or deliberately tried to paint as some kind of nefarious communication. And so, but at this point, you can read the indictment. Sussman's lie was material, among other reasons. Sussman's false statements misled the FBI General Counsel and other personnel concerning the political nature of his work and deprived the FBI of information that might have permitted it to fully assess and uncover the origins of the relevant data and technical analysis, including the identities and motivations of Sussman's clients. Bogdana Papai, everyone here, Born to Raise Hawks, they knew already. They knew. Everyone. So Sussman is this poor man is like innocent, or I wouldn't say he introduced information knowing very well he was setting up and framing Trump. He knew the information was false or bogus or a lie. The thing that the reason this man is, I would say, innocent, or you know, the reason I would say that he might, well, I don't know, if the only way he can get out of the indictment is to kind of turn on other attorneys, other colleagues, which is what Durham wants. They want him to flip and sing. Remember when the Mueller probe was going to get people to flip and sing? But all he has to do is say, yeah, that guy James Baker and the other attorneys I worked with at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, yeah, they knew exactly why I was there. So all he has to say is they knew that he was working for the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign. Those were the people paying him. So Bogdanopapai, if he now has to, if he can throw a number of people, a number of high-level people, influential people, under the bus. Okay, the National Security Advisor, Jake Tapper, why did he promote this myth also? Okay, these are lies that are told in a legal manner. They legally set up and framed Trump. They didn't illegally set up and frame Trump. They did it through law. They did it through, I should say, legal means, but they didn't realize that, the Federal Bureau of Investigation would then claim that it had no knowledge, because they don't want to be, Comey and others, they don't want to be labeled as political operatives. So when a government agency works to undermine Trump, they're going to say, well, we were just given information. We had no clue that the information was, tarnished. We didn't know. And so that's the point. The point is, now you have Trump vows GOP probe of Biden corruption. So Donald Trump is back. So Bogdanopapai, eventually you'll have, yes, exactly, JG, exactly. Eventually you'll have, people higher up. But this has to look like, for example, Kleinsmith. You can look at his indictment. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Okay? It's not rocket science. Okay? It's not rocket science. The DNC paid for research that led to Russia dossier. Okay? Clinton campaign, DNC paid for research that led to Russia dossier. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. We know what they were doing. We know, we know why. We know how they were able to utilize government agencies. They were able to utilize government agencies because they had access to high-level government officials. These government officials are now going to say that they were duped and deceived and tricked and taken advantage of. The government officials are not going to tell Durham, okay, Comey and McCabe and Clapper and Brennan, they're not going to tell Durham, oh yeah, by the way, we wanted to set up and frame Trump, so we got Kleinsmith to lie to FISA judges. We got Sussman to give us information on Alpha Bank. And we got the Steele subsource. We just took his information at face value, and that's it. That's not going to ever happen. That FBI official that Durham put in prison didn't just say, oh yeah, I was working with, the criminal organization in Boston. He didn't say that. He said, oh, I had to work with informants. So Um, so here you have. All right, so here, hold on 1 second. He actually put a high-level FBI official. Um, hold on 1 second. All right, so all right, so here you have. You can look. You can look at John Connolly was a decorated Federal Bureau of Investigation agent, but he was actually corrupted into being a prize informant for Boston mobsters, functioning as a member of a criminal enterprise. A federal prosecutor said today in closing arguments in Mr. Connolly's trial for racketeering and obstruction of justice. John Connolly knew what his obligations were in limiting his personal ties to his organized crime informants, said the prosecutor John Durham, an assistant U.S. attorney, but he was on somebody else's team. So he already knew. He already knew. Demetrius, thank you. He already knew. When people say, "Oh, nothing's gonna happen," nothing's gonna happen to Durham. Is Durham even real? And I love it. Like these, like oftentimes, many of the same people who believed that, if somebody saw like a donut shaped like a certain letter, oh my God, it's a sign. And I was telling people that was absurd from the very beginning. In fact, you could see a debate where I say the whole nonsense is very, very harmful and could lead to no good. But people like, is anything going to happen? Is anything going to happen? It's like, he already put, you could see that John Durham already understands it, like what team you're on. He understands what team you're on. He already knows what team. Okay? John Connolly was not on the FBI's team. Maybe he was in the beginning of his career, and then at a certain point, he joined a different team. Okay? I mean, you can kind of look at this as in a sports, you can kind of use the sports metaphor. You can kind of use the sports metaphor for all of these things. And it's like this man is in prison now, John Connolly, for a long, long time. And he's in prison because of John Durham. So this is Mr. Connolly, 61, is accused of leaking information to his own informants that resulted in, The ending of lives of 3 witnesses of taking bribes, tipping off James Whitey Bulger, the head of a powerful crime family in Boston, about a secret 1994 federal indictment against him that enabled him to flee. Okay, so the accusations were spelled out in 10 days of testimony by a parade of convicted. Okay, so this was not like he already put an FBI, top FBI official, a top FBI official in prison. Okay? So it's not like he doesn't understand. It's not like he doesn't understand how government officials are utilizing their bureaucracy. It's like if you work for a corporation, okay, and born to raise hog, Bogdana Papai, everybody here, thank you again, born to raise hogs and Bogdana Papai and everybody here. If you work for a corporation and the manager of the office manager asks you to to meet him in his office, and they say, why were you using the copy machine after the office was closed for the night? Well, I had to make an extra copy of. Well, you know what? That's against the regulations of the corporation, and we're going to have to terminate your employment, and we're going to have to let you go. Okay? We're going to have to terminate your employment, and we're going to have to let you go now. Well, technically, I guess he could do that. Okay? But the motivation could be, okay, others within the office paid the manager to fire that employee simply because they don't like him. So they paid the manager, and the manager had to find some obscure technical reason to let the employee go. So you can hide behind your post in bureaucracies and do despicable things all the time. J-Spot 51! Oh man, it was an obvious psyop. Thank you! J-Spot 51, thank you! So, I mean, that was, not that good of an example, but they suddenly become the most gullible and naive people when they're asked simple questions. When Comey was asked, do you know who funded the Steele dossier? I don't know. I potentially could have been. I just don't know. All of these morally superior liberals or people who side with the Democratic Party. I mean, the Republicans had the same thing 20 years ago. Okay? And the Never Trump Republicans are like that now. They always, when they're caught in a lie, they're the worst actors. Alec Baldwin is an amazing actor. I don't say amazing, but he's very talented. He's actually talented in voiceovers too. I can't put on an old NFL films DVD without hearing Alec Baldwin's voice. I'm like, what? Oh my, not again. But he's so good. But the man ended this woman's life because of his reckless, incompetent behavior, and he lied through his teeth. He's a very talented actor, but when he's lying, he's a horrible actor. Alec Baldwin's a horrible actor when he's lying. When George Stephanopoulos said, "Oh, well, you know what? You shouldn't have, the scene didn't call for the weapon to be fired." I wouldn't do that. I would never. My training. I pulled back the hammer. I pulled the hammer back. Hammer time. Stop hammer time. Everybody knows from London to the Bay. Stop hammer time. I would never do that. I would only point a Colt 45 less than 2 feet away from a person's midsection and pull the hammer back, but not the. I would never pull the. No. It's horrible acting. Okay, suddenly these intelligent, very knowledgeable people become buffoons. And you just, you have it right here. This is the main thing, okay? Clinton campaign DNC paid for research that led to Russia. They literally paid for their myth. They paid for they actually paid money to lie. Trump doesn't, if he lies about certain things, it's not as, none of the things he's lied about have been as grandiose as the absurd hoaxes that Democrats have lied endlessly about. Trump never worked with Russia, so he was telling the truth. He didn't do anything wrong with his taxes, he was telling the truth. He didn't tell anybody in January to commit crimes, he was telling the truth. Every time they accuse Trump of something he didn't do, he's telling the truth. Every time they accuse Trump of, doing this or that, he's still telling the truth. He's saying, no, I didn't do that. Yvette, hello. So So it's like when you're hiding, all you have to do is hide behind your post as in a bureaucracy. You don't need it's very simple. You don't need much to deceive people in a bureaucracy. In a bureaucracy, you need, let's say in a political or a government bureaucracy, you need media. Okay, so here, um, let's see. Um, Hold on one second here. Let's just see. Mm. These reports allege, I mean, this would never happen. This BuzzFeed was not censored, was not silenced by anybody. The New York Post was. That should tell you a little bit about free speech in the country. Okay? That should tell you. So when all you need is BuzzFeed or Mother Jones to perpetuate myths, then the Washington Post republishes those lies and hoaxes. Then 2 years later, a year and a half later, oh, by the way, just a little minor side note. Just a little minor side note. It was funded by the DNC and so in this initial report, does it talk about the DNC? No, it doesn't talk about the DNC funding this. And then they go. So then all of them, it's a public relations monstrosity. So they published lies and baseless allegations. If this was published against Biden, everyone at BuzzFeed would then say it was, you know what, if Breitbart published a dossier about Biden, immediately BuzzFeed would write a hit piece. Immediately. But BuzzFeed and the Daily Beast and the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Atlantic and the New Yorker and New York Magazine and Esquire and Rolling Stone and Mother Jones and The Nation and the Los Angeles Times and Time Magazine and CNN and every single publication and cable station and liberal pundit and journalist out there who is essentially a liberal pundit, oftentimes masquerading as a journalist or an activist, They will say that Trump worked with Russia. This is the antithesis of an authoritarian. Authoritarians usually have full control of media and intelligence operatives. Okay? Name me one authoritarian in the history of the world that didn't have full control of intelligence agencies, of media, of his own government. Trump did not have control of his own government in the last year of his presidency. They wrestled control away from him. And look, he fell for a number of traps, and it wasn't necessarily his fault, but he fell for them. He should never have had those press conferences with, "You're wrong, Dr. Rand." He should never, ever, ever have had those press conferences. He should never, ever have been on Twitter. And so the dossier, a collection of memos written, includes specific, unverified, and potentially unverifiable allegations. Potentially unverifiable. I mean, you have Hunter's emails literally written by him, and the pay-to-play, schemes, like exposing pay-to-play schemes, and nobody touches it with a 10-foot pole. Nobody touches it. But here, you know what? As long as we put unverifiable, it's still journalism. And you better believe they're going to write a hit piece on that's just the way this is the way media works. Madison Cawthorn, they're going to find his kindergarten teacher and interview, you know what, when he was in kindergarten. You better believe. But with Eric Swalwell or anyone, no, my God, BuzzFeed would never write a hit piece. This is public relations. The difference between BuzzFeed and the Washington Post, there is no difference. There's no difference between the edgiest socialist and a liberal Democrat on CNN or the $20 million venture capital people. It's the same thing. They're vote blue no matter who. This is one political side. They care about one political side. That's it. They say that the truth that Trump is tarnishing. What Trump does, the reason Trump is so interesting and amusing and awesome is because he doesn't care about their sacred cows. He doesn't care about their sacred cows. He just really doesn't care about their sacred cows. He just, everything that all the myths, all the myths that they create, they would never allow against them. Okay, so when I go ahead and they do so legally, so they have law firms, and a law firm in particular, Biden creates preparing for a big fight over voting. It's a racket. The Democratic Party gets donations. The donations are then utilized to pay for legal fees. The legal fees are utilized to pay attorneys like Sussman to create myths and bogus hoaxes attacking their political opponents. This then riles up the Democratic base and gets them more loyal to Democrats. Then they pump more money into candidates and into the DNC. And oh, by the way, the DNC pays their attorneys again, and the same thing happens. It's a money-making endeavor, okay? It's a racket. And this happened with Boss Tweed, Tammany Hall. Um, this we saw this in the 1800s. It hasn't changed. It's called legal graft. It's called legal graft. Democrats have been doing this for a long time. And they even wrote books on it. So, Plunkett of Tammany Hall. So I mean, a series of very plain talks on politics derived by ex-Senator George Washington Plunkett, the Tammany philosopher. Okay? They get rich off of information. That's why you had Pelosi or Feinstein and Richard Burr selling stocks right after a selling stocks right after a classified briefing. Sparky! Pompeo and Haspel continually misled Trump. I don't doubt that. Yeah. I don't doubt that. But at the end of the day, President Trump should never have given up on Michael Flynn. He should never see, the thing is, he should never have done certain things. And that was an easy call to make in the beginning. Sparky, thank you. Born to Raise Hogs, thank you so very much. Bogdan Papai, thank you. He should never have given up on Michael Flynn because Michael Flynn didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do it. Once they got his national security advisor out of the way, they were able to torment him. And they were able to try to control him, at least in terms of foreign policy, for a couple of months. I mean, a couple of years, sorry, the first 2 years. So he should never, ever, 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 ever have, he should never, ever have turned on, or he should never have allowed them, because Peter Strzok interviewed Michael Flynn. At that point, he didn't know Trump, the investigation into Trump and Russia hadn't officially been publicized yet. It hadn't officially been, let's see, the dossier was published. When did they publish? So it was January of 2017. And that was around the time that they set up and framed Michael Flynn. That was around the time that they set up and framed Michael Flynn. And so that was around the time that um that that Michael that okay, so they were setting up and framing Trump the beginning in January of 2017. In January and February of 2017, they were just starting to get the ball rolling in terms of trying to set up and frame Trump. Then the media reports came out that, oh, he was being investigated. Then you have the attempt at basically dismantling his administration immediately. So he didn't do anything like. Then they say, well, Flynn's made outrageous comments. Okay, and all of media made the same outrageous comments. They all claimed that Trump worked with Russia and was installed by the Kremlin. How is that any less outrageous? Actually, more outrageous than anything he said, or just as outrageous or whatever. But the thing is, like, when President Trump was first elected, I think that what happened was he thought that they would give him a chance. I think that I think that he believed he would be given a moment of peace or a period where they would treat him like a president. And so the people advising him, the Mueller probe would never have started had he stood by Michael Flynn. It would never have started because Michael Flynn was National Security Advisor. That's a pretty important and powerful and influential position. Once they got his National Security Advisor out of the way, they could then, have perhaps the information they needed about what was. That's why you had all of these. I'm not saying it was there were so many leaks during Trump's administration, and a lot of them were almost certainly made up. Most of them were made up. Most of them were made up. But had he simply stood by Michael Flynn, we would have then found out very quickly that McCabe and Peter Strzok were trying to entrap Flynn, get him out of that position as National Security Advisor, and immediately try to handicap Trump. Immediately try to decimate or remove his one of the most loyal people around him. Then you had Sessions. And he should never in a million years have picked Sessions. Oh my God, that was a mistake. Oh my God. But he didn't know. I mean, he didn't realize that everyone around him would betray him. Almost everyone would betray him in some capacity. He didn't realize that. And then, I mean, in modern history, you've never had a president who was treated in the manner Trump was treated. And I asked a very intelligent person, I'm like, well, he was never treated as a president. And then the person said, well, he didn't deserve to be. I'm like, okay, he didn't deserve to be what, like the second he stepped foot in the Oval Office? They didn't even give him a chance. But they didn't give him a chance. He didn't deserve to be. I mean, he proved to be a pretty good president, considering he had every disadvantage possible. All of media against him. Usually media rallies behind a president. Bush had full control of the narrative. President Obama did too. And it's like, It's like he did some pretty good things. Our economy was fantastic. We had a normal. Right now, media plays too great a role in American politics. And the reason it does is because Democrats utilize media as a political weapon. That's why media plays too much of a role in American politics. But Flynn did nothing wrong. Like, he literally did nothing wrong. Sparky! As if every disciple were Judas. Sparky! But they didn't, though. But they didn't, though. Flynn he was never working with any country while he was national security advisor. And all of those national security advisors, either before or after, worked as consultants for countries. All of those generals do too. There's nothing that Flynn did that was out of the ordinary. They didn't have any sway over him. They just used that. They just utilized suspicion. So now if you're suspicious of Flynn or if you're suspicious of Trump, then it's like, okay, everything goes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Durham probe will indict more people. It's just a matter of time, and it's also a matter of the special counsel he's going to go past November, and the special counsel 1996 Telecom Act allowed for media consolidation. Yes, Sparky, thank you. Once the House and the Senate go Republican, Trump Republican, it's a whole new ballgame. It is a whole entirely new ballgame. You're going to have more attorneys indicted because these attorneys, what they did was they pretended to give information, and like the indictment says, they pretended to be good, honest citizens, not bringing these allegations to the FBI on behalf of any client. Falsely stated that he was not bringing the allegations on behalf of any client. So now Sussman, the longer this goes on, Sussman can say, hey, wait a second. They knew exactly what I was doing. In fact, here's the evidence. Then you get the perjury. This is like, this could go on for years. They say, well, this special counsel's gone on forever. It's gotten zero media support, practically zero political support, and nobody knows what it is. Even the people on our political side, or like the Trump Republican political side, don't know. They're like, oh, nothing's going to happen. Because too many people, unfortunately, believed, or a lot of people, I should say, believed certain myths that were almost certainly fabricated by Democratic operatives. Don't you ever wonder why Democrats never tried to find the actual source of that message board? Don't you ever, the absurd message board I called out immediately as being the stupidest hoax of all time? Don't you like ever question or wonder why nobody has ever actually found like the people who were writing these dumb messages? Patriots, like an armadillo in the sun. Remember the Bible verse? Trust the little Keebler elf, Jeff Sessions, trust him. He's only the most despicable, dishonest, lying, conniving weasel on the planet, but trust him. He only stabbed basically Trump in the back 1,000,000 times over. Jeff Sessions helped plunge this country into 5-6 years into 4 or 5 years of Trump Russia. He did not have to recuse himself. Al Franken got him petrified that he was going to get perjury. He wasn't going to be charged with perjury. He could have simply said, you know what, I was speaking to Sergei Kislyak. The whole thing was nonsense. So what? You're speaking to the Russian Sergei Kislyak, the Russian ambassador. So what? Who cares? Who cares? He could have said, no, I was speaking with him, but nothing about the specific allegation. Who cares? But he recused himself and basically gave it to, what's his name? And then the whole thing just started. I mean, Jeff Sessions single-handedly plunged the country. He was the attorney general. He was the attorney general of an incoming president. My God. My God. The LMNOP, Sharon Isaacson, I don't want to bring it up for the algorithm, but the message board that people, thank you, Sharon, the message board that people, not many people, but a certain number of people thought was, intelligence operatives helping Trump through a message board. And it was a letter. So, Sharon, thank you. Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, I can stand because they are, they're somewhat chameleons. Like, they're political creatures. Sometimes they're really, really good, and then other times it's like, what are you doing? They always kind of gravitate towards trying to be viewed as establishment for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of the times, they're pretty good. Rand Paul is amazing. Rand Paul, Ron Johnson. These are amazing. This dogma now that exists. Democrats live with their fantasies, their dogma, their ideology. It's part of who they are. They've jettisoned God, so most of them, and they've replaced religion with the Steele dossier. Their Bible is the Steele dossier. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. Born to Raise Hogs, thank you so much. Bogdana Papai, everybody here. I will probably be back by around 11. So be here at 11 p.m. tonight, everybody. Be here at 11 p.m. Pacific tonight. Thanks, everybody. Born to Raise Hogs, thank you so very much. Everybody here, thank you. Sparky! The 1996 Telecom Act also removed logistical barriers between the government and telecom companies, resulting in unfettered electronic surveillance by government. Sparky, thank you. Thank you, Sparky. And it's also interesting, you just see journalism now is like activism. And perhaps the Telecom Act enabled that to take place. Amazing, Colonel. Hello. Eliza, thank you. Sparky, thank you. Born to Raise Hogs, thank you. Bogdana Papai, thank you. Everybody here. JG, everyone. Judith, hello. Missy, thanks, everyone. Be here at 11 p.m. tonight. 11 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you for a great